All right, perfect. Thank you, Mary, and thank you all for being here. I know this is a very hot topic that we all deal with probably more often than we'd like to admit. Most of us pretty much our entire lives we've dealt with it. So just know it is entirely normal and common, but there are ways to work around it and to really overcome it. So
Oops. Unmute yourself, Mallory. I think I've accidentally pushed you when I was trying to push somebody else.
thank you for saying that. I would have been talking to myself. Did you guys hear that intro or no? I can re-say it.
Okay. Do it again.
All right, let me grab my screen for you guys. Are you guys able to see that? Okay, perfect. Yep. Awesome. So just in case you did miss any of that, I am Erica. I know we have all dealt with shame throughout our lives, pretty much all of our lives. So just know that that is very common, very normal, but there are ways around it, which is obviously a great thing why we're all here. So this is me. I'm a certified life coach, world traveler, people person extraordinaire, I like to say. Really what brings me the most joy is connecting with others. That is without a doubt what fills my cup and what gives me purpose. So that's kind of how I fell into what I'm doing. And I can tell you guys a little bit more about that. But we will get started with why you guys are all here. Shame. Shame is so very common, and it is, in short, just the painful feeling of humiliation or distress that is caused by consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. And the reason why I really wanted you guys to see this and understand it is because of the consciousness of the judgment we have on the behavior that we feel this way in the first place. So when you kind of break it down, it can help it make a little bit more sense because it is an emotion we deal with so much. A lot of times we can forget as to why we're even feeling it or what we're feeling. So shame is a very, very, very human emotion. As we know, it is status-based. Again, it comes with all the judgments. Shame actually means to cover or to hide or to make disappear. So I'm sure, and for anyone who has their camera on, show of hands, how much have you, when you guys are feeling shameful, do you just want to pull yourselves away and disappear and, really make sure no one sees you, because that's a huge part of the shame, right? Okay, me too. Shame thrives in darkness and secrecy. I know, especially when it comes to drinking, a lot of the clients that I work with, what brings them to me in the first place is that they're drinking either in secrecy or they're trying to hide things or got caught hiding things. So this is, again, very common, but this is where shame thrives. And it's, you get caught and then you feel bad about it. And then it's just a vicious cycle. You don't want to do it again, but you do, but you hide it and you get caught again. And it's, so we're just dealing with that over and over and over again. And that's because it's thriving in this dark secret place. So shame really comes down to not only the fear of what others are judging or what we, our perceptions of it, but really we're projecting those judgments on ourselves. And this is where it can be a real big aha moment for a lot of us, is we all have, our expectations of what we think people are thinking, but we don't know what they're thinking. All we're thinking is what we think they're thinking about us. And that's really where all this comes from. But it's, at the end of the day, just projecting our feelings, our judgments, our insecurities. Is this making sense, everyone? All right. So we could definitely make this a little interactive if anyone wants to say anything or share anything, but what does shame feel like for you guys? Physically, I know people can feel hot a lot of times, in certain places of their body, but as far as how you experience it, blame is huge, huge, huge. Withdraw, like I said, it means to cover, to disappear. So withdraw is a huge part of it. Lashing out. Who has lashed out at others when they're feeling very shameful? I know that that's a big part of it, especially when there's anger involved. And then deflecting. That is all of these, you might experience one or two of them, or all of them throughout your experience with even a single shameful thought or emotion. So these are all incredibly, incredibly normal, common feelings. And anyone have anything that stands out to them the most?
I think for me, it's withdrawal and anger at myself, and I'm not so much worried most of the time when especially if it's caused by drinking, I'm not really out in front of other people doing it. So it's not what I'm thinking they're thinking of me. It's what I think of myself that causes the shame.
Exactly. So common. All right. So the reason why this is such a big problem is we were never taught how to deal with shame. And I have a toddler right now, so I am constantly really understanding like a lot of the coaching that I've been doing, because here we are, when we're young, we're taught to know what our feelings are. But then once we can label our feelings, we're taught not to deal with them or to deal with them in private. You're not emotional in front of people at work. You can't get emotional at school. You can't get emotional. There's so many things that we have these feelings, but we never really learn how to deal with them at the end of the day. So we just push them down. And as we all know, they're going to come out sooner or later. It just depends on, as when that is, and it's typically not at an opportune moment. So the other problem with shame is it is caused by ourselves. As Mary just said, for her own experience, the shame is not her, what she's worried about other people thinking, but the judgments that she's placing on herself. And so that's where, it's at the end of the day, it's all number one, it's all internal. And then the tribal dynamic. So as we know, in the beginning of time, we all had these communities and you had to work as a tribe to survive. If the tribe kicked you out, you were basically done. So where shame really originated was, it was a feeling to motivate you to work hard for the tribe, to want to be a part of the tribe. And that, when it depended on your survival, that was huge. That was imperative, and you needed it. It's not serving you anymore. You don't need the tribal support in order for you to not get eaten by a lion, so that's where what served us in the past no longer serves us now. So now what? Why you guys are all here? Better things that you guys can do to manage the feelings of shame when they arise for you. So as we said, shame is internal. It's caused by you. It is all about number one at the end of the day. It is feelings of unworthiness, of weaknesses that we have. I talk to so many people that they're just like, if I wasn't so weak, this wouldn't be a problem. Especially obviously when it comes to our drinking, or if I was better, then I would be able to control this. If I had more willpower, if I was stronger, all of these negative emotions that ultimately come down to how we feel about ourselves, how we accept ourselves, how we feel worthiness wise, it all comes down to internal. So what you can do as you start feeling these emotions, and this is kind of like a process, so don't worry, it'll take time. You didn't start shaming yourself yesterday, so it'll take time to kind of get used to this. But really, you've got to start putting this in practice as often as you can, anytime that you feel these feelings and thoughts around it. So the number one thing you got to do is acknowledge it. So ask yourself, where is this coming from? What am I actually feeling? And what is the shame around? So I know a lot of us are here because the shame's around drinking. Either you're drinking more than you would like, you're disappointing others, you feel like you're a disappointment, whatever that looks like, but we all have shame around it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on this call right now. So from there, once you acknowledge it, you need to, as neutrally as possible, start analyzing it. And the reason why saying neutral is so imperative is we're constantly beating ourselves up. Again, if I was stronger, if I wasn't so bad at this, I'd be able to manage it. That is not helping anyone. So if we can stay neutral and actually analyze the situation and lose the judgments, that's where you can get to really the bottom of it and start to understand how to not have these same feelings. What I like to do is really ask yourself, what is fact, not opinion? Because at the end of the day, everything pretty much is our opinion or what we think other people think as well. So once you've been able to analyze it neutrally, which that I think is the hardest thing for everyone, just because we're humans and, you know, we strive for perfection and like to beat ourselves up when we don't hit that. So from there, we got to take responsibility. And I know some are better at taking responsibility than others, but at the end of the day, again, this is all about showing yourself grace and love and compassion. But when you take responsibility and say it out loud, shame is all about covering, hiding, disguising, withdrawing. When you take responsibility, it's out there. So that right there can take a lot of the shame away because you're uncovering it as opposed to trying to hide it. So take responsibility and figure out what you can do next time. We're all going to be in maybe not the exact same situation, but a similar situation in the future. So when I'm in that situation next, what can I do and what will I do? So I have the outcome that I want, or a opposite outcome of this, since I'm feeling shameful around it. And then, sorry, my screen's a little off. From there, you got to forgive and move on. And this, I think, is where we all get stuck, because we want to forget. Forgetting is almost impossible, but forgiveness is one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself and for others, mainly because everything that we hold on to holds weight, whether it's emotionally, physically on our body, but it all holds weight. So if we don't let it go, again, it's all going to come out sometime, somewhere, depending on, you know, what you believe. Some people think that this can lead to cancer and to a bunch of other things if you really hold on to everything in the body. But more than anything, it's just for your emotional well-being that you need to be able to just let go and move on. But every time we hold on to the shame, it just keeps building on itself, right? So being able to actually, again, accept, acknowledge, take responsibility, and then you have the plan of, okay, when this happens next time, this is how I'd like to behave. I know for those who are doing Atomic Habits, identity is a big part of it. Who am I working to become? What would this person do in this situation? So that is where you can help yourself move on, knowing that, all right, I've learned from it. I'm going to be better next time. So all this really comes down to, again, how we speak to ourselves internally and the self-confidence, self-love, self-acceptance that we have, which, not to point anyone out, but I know for men, it can be even harder to have this, just because I know with girls at a younger age, we try to teach this, where boys, just for whatever reason, we typically aren't so much into this self-love thing. I feel like that's changing. And, you know, I always think of Saturday Night Live, the guy who would look in the mirror and be like, I'm wonderful. Everybody likes me. Like, you can do that if you want, works for some people, but that's not at all what I'm saying. At the end of the day, it all comes down to how you talk to yourself, because what you tell your brain believes. Your brain doesn't know the difference between fact, opinion, this is right, this is wrong. It's what we're telling it that then it determines, okay, this is what it's supposed to be. So the number one thing you can do to help with your self-confidence is to stop looking for external validation. This is the easiest thing to do to help for short-term relief, but at the end of the day, external validation it's doing nothing. It'll give you a short-term relief, just like that drink will, but we know long-term it's not going to do anything. It has to come from within. So consistently practicing this is going to be really the best game changer for you guys, because as we know, what you practice, you get really, really good at. So if you're practicing negative habits, you're going to get really good at those habits, as opposed to if you're practicing good stuff that you want to change, it's going to be easier for you to do that. So an easy way to kind of kick off, if you want to make a list or anything, come up with a list of accomplishments that you have done throughout your life. This shows, it's evidence to yourself that you've achieved things, that you can achieve things, that you will continue to achieve things. So that's an easy thing to do. More importantly, what have you overcome? Accomplishments are fantastic, absolutely, but look at it in the way of, what have I overcome? Maybe it's a horrible relationship or a job that you thought was going to break you, that now you're thriving, or you got out of it and now, you're better off. Like, list all the things big and small that you've overcome and how they've changed you, how you've grown, how you've persevered. When your strength, emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, when that improves, these are all huge moments for you. That this is what makes you a better person. This is the whole reason why we're here in life, is to be better in some way or another. When our character is challenged, that's a huge thing. I know for a lot of us, as soon as our character is challenged, that's when it's really hard to overcome that. So think of times when you have been challenged and how you've become better since. And then all the determination that it's taken to get you to where you are, because I think we forget to give ourselves credit for how much we've already accomplished. It's easy to just get trapped into the, well, I'm not doing this right, or this isn't good enough. And then we just stay in that bubble. So again, remember really how amazing you are and everything that you've accomplished throughout your life. So now it's your guys' turn. I do have a worksheet. I'll show you guys that next. But basically, if you learn to manage your mind, which is all about self-talk, how you are thinking, feeling, treating yourself, then that's going to help you to create the confidence that you need to change the underlying beliefs. Because at the end of the day, shame is entirely coming from these underlying beliefs that we have, the underlying beliefs, the judgments, the self-limiting beliefs, all that fun stuff, which is why people are in therapy their whole lives, right? So again, the external versus internal validation, focus internally, however and whenever is possible. It doesn't mean that when someone gives you a compliment, don't accept it, thrive on that, let it fill you up, but don't let it be your everything. Because at the end of the day, I have a lot of clients who they work very hard, but they're not getting what they need from their spouse or their support network group, or they're not being celebrated or supported as much. And it sucks. That is heartbreaking when you are working so hard and the people that you love the most aren't giving you, that high five or that support that you are really wanting. But that's where it has to come from inside, because at the end of the day, no one's going to give you the exact response that you want or need, most likely at the moment that you need it, but you can do that for yourself. And I like to say, be your own bestie. I have a great friend who is like literally a knockout. I call her a Victoria's Secret model. She is gorgeous and smart and successful. And she has a very hard time with how she talks about herself. She beats herself down a lot of self-deprecating humor. And I will always call her out. And I'm like, stop talking about my bestie that way. And it made me realize, what are we doing to ourselves? When you say to yourself, I'm only going to have 3 drinks tonight, and then you end up having 6 or 8 or 10 or whatever the number is, number one, the one person that you're hurting is yourself. But every time you do that, you're telling yourself not to trust yourself or what you say. You're giving yourself an out. So that's where, if you're your own bestie, if you tell your best friend, I'm going to pick you up and take you out for your birthday, and you don't show up, you guys probably aren't going to be best friends, right? So if you start treating yourself like your own best friend, you're talking to yourself in a supportive, loving way, in a compassionate way, you're really building yourself up to make sure you are setting yourself up for success rather than being your number one self-sabotager. So that can be really, really helpful. And all of this ultimately leads to self-love and acceptance, which is the greatest gift you can give yourself and anyone else when you actually get to this place where you just love yourself as imperfectly as you are, because we all are, we're human. That is why we're here. No one is perfect, and there is no element of perfect, but the grace and compassion and love that you can show yourself will really transform this whole process. And when you feel that, it's almost impossible to feel shame, because you're not having those judgments, you're not having those negative thoughts. It's all, you might have a situation where I didn't like that, I could do better next time, but you don't have the shame around it. And shame can be debilitating, as we all know. So I have a free week worksheet for you guys if you guys want to check it out, and I can send it to Mary if she wants to post it or send it out with Kickstart emails. That's whatever you prefer. But it's basically just what you can go through next time you are dealing with a shameful thought or moment. Let me see if I can showcase it. Yes. So basically the worksheet is going to look like this. Can you guys see the worksheet now? Okay. So basically, and it is a digital format, so you can go through for those who prefer typing as opposed to writing down. But this is kind of the process as far as when you're in this really dark, shameful moment, or when you feel like you could be going there. These are the questions to ask yourself, to think about, that will really help you not only understand why you're going through it, but how you can get to the other side without feeling that shame, and help you to avoid it next time. So, all right. Well, that is all I have. I wanted to make it as short and sweet as possible for you guys, because again, know that you guys have been in a lot. I don't know how to stop sharing. Right? Oh, there we go. So does anyone have questions, thoughts, feedback, concerns, anything?
I'm going to stop recording right now, so everybody's free to ask questions, and I will unpin you, Erica. So